we heard what Charles Kipkulei had to say about the environment as a leader. And I'll start with you, Honorable Mutambo. What can you tell Kenyans, really? You heard the concerns of the residents in Mombasa. They're saying that, they just want their country back. How is that going to happen? See, looking at all this objectively.
Unfortunately, Kenyans are driven by their leaders. They listen more of their leaders than themselves. A supporter would die out there because of the support and the love they have for the leaders. This is an unfortunate thing. We do not believe in ourselves, right? Osoro here will not hang you based on interest of the country, but he would basically hang you based on the interest of Raila. Mutambo here, may hang you, all right? Based on interest of Uhuru Kenyatta. And this is one of the bad things which is happening in our country. I'm giving you now the scenarios, what is happening in our country. Those supporters who are out there, they don't care about themselves. They don't care whether they will get bread on their table tomorrow. They'll care what Raila says. And there are also other supporters who cares what Uhuru says. This is what problem we are facing. And to get rid of this, it will take centuries, let me tell you. And if this can be weeded out of our country, then we reason and we think for ourselves, this country can prosper. This is step number one. Step number two, it is now for us leaders, since we know the kind of people we lead, the way they behave, it is now the time for us to come together and tone down and try to address our supporters in the best way possible, but not through Chebukati calling us or Chebukati calling this one. It is our responsibility. When we go out there, if I am Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, I go out there, I'll tell Kenyans what the law says and what we need to do. If Raila goes out there, they Raila tells his supporters what the law says and what Kenyans need to, how Kenyans need to behave, but not to tell them Tibi Mantitiala and whatever, something which you do not understand. This is a big problem.
All right. Also, I'll get your sentiments in a short while, but we'll just take a breather and then we'll come back here on the show.
This is KTN News.
Just simply put is a digital acceptance channel by which consumers can pay either their friends or family, or they can pay merchants directly from their bank account by using their mobile banking application provided to them by their bank. They can pay a merchant by either scanning a static QR code and then entering the purchase amount, or by scanning a dynamic QR code, which is unique to that purchase and already has the purchase amount information along with the merchant information. If the consumer does not have a smartphone and they have a feature phone, they can still use the service by using the USSD short code functionality. Whether the consumer is paying or sending money to their friends or family or paying a merchant, the service is free to the consumer.
This is KTN News.
All right, welcome back to News Center. We're about to wrap up things here, but I want to hear the wrapping thoughts of Sylvanus Osoro. What can you tell the country? Yeah, at least we've had something very critical from Joe Mutambo. What is it that you can say?
First and foremost, it's indeed true that you're planting a very wrong seed, and we won't be enjoying the fruits. They'll actually be very bitter, and it's very, very unfortunate. Both political divides. These were actually again planted in the 60s. The Ogingas again and the Kenyattas planted the wrong seed. Oppressive laws were passed in Parliament in 1969 that gave imperial presidency, which again came to oppress people in the reign of the former president, then Teacher Arap Moi. So we need to be very careful on what we are doing. Today we could be in power. Tomorrow we don't know who will be in power. When we say we just, borrow uchaguzi, that is not something to come out of this generation. I want to be president in 2032, for instance. I need to make sure that I fight.
Your presidential bid
Exactly. I need to make sure that the laws that we are having right now are fit, that nobody will come and say, if I lose fairly in 2032, I'll know that I've lost fairly. So what you need to do right now, this is the time that you need to come together and talk. We need to have statements made by leaders, a little bit calm. Not as what we are seeing right now, both political divides expressing themselves, a lot of bitterness. We need to have leaders settle down. And this, for me, must start from the presidency, because everything rises and falls on leadership. As things are right now, we have somebody in charge, we have somebody in power, who is in control of all of us, including the other candidates. So it's important for him to take charge and make sure that he portrays or gives out a conciliatory message to all Kenyans. Show Kenyans that, he's still on top. Show Kenyans that there is need for us to love one another. I've seen a message at least today on paper. He's written a letter to every Kenyan, who is able to read a newspaper. That message hasn't gotten back to my village with my grandmother. But we need to hear such kind of messages, conciliatory messages. And history will judge us harshly if we keep quiet and say, okay, the country is okay, let's push things. Chest thumping will not help us. If need be, because the laws are made by men, if need be, let's not hold this election on 26th, so that we actually have, clear setups, sit down and agree, and then we have an election in a date that is agreeable by both parties. Whoever loses concedes. So that is it.
We're going back to where we started. Okay, Charles Kipkulei, what are your wrapping thoughts as we wind up the show?
There was a viewer who called and asked what happens if some regions do not vote. And probably I wanted just to comment on that, number one, participation in an election is voluntary and in our current system. And secondly, if a polling station or even a higher electoral unit like a ward or even a constituency returns does not vote, then my thinking is that 0 is also an election result, and that can be captured as such. But the most serious issue is that under Article 81 of the Constitution, it provides for the general principles of the electoral system, and one of them is that it should be free from violence. Therefore, this thinking that the election may be annulled based on the inability to hold elections, the only way you can stop elections in this country right now is by precipitating chaos in some areas. So the concern that we should have as a nation right now, and even to the security agencies, is anybody out there planning to create a situation where elections can be annulled on the basis of not being consistent with Article 81, specifically because of chaos. So that one should something that Kenyans should really watch out for. But importantly, anybody who goes out there to commit an electoral offense, trying to think that you are doing an activity that will now, even what you are seeing now, that IEBC staff are being attacked during trainings, you are committing an individual offense and you shall be punished individually. That does not necessarily mean that if you stop the election, if you cause chaos, the election shall be stopped. You may end up in jail yourself. So the issue is you may end we need to be cautious as a nation. But also, finally, to our country, I really am happy that I'm hearing even the NCIC chair speaking. These are the voices that I said earlier need to become more vocal and speak more on the need of cohesion and reconciliation as a nation, and not just leave the burden as a very heavy one on the back of one Mr. Fola Chebukati, the IEBC chairperson.
All right, thank you very much. That's Charles Kipkulei, who's a political analyst here in studio. I was joined by Honorable Sylvanus Osoro, who's a South Mugirango Member of Parliament, together with Honorable Joe Mutambu, who's a former Mwingi Central Member of Parliament. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Let's spread, positive messages and peaceful ones.
correct.
Yeah, sorry, is like, yes. All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And thank you for being part of the show this morning. We appreciate, I've seen quite a number of comments on my Twitter handle with regards to our conversation. Let's keep it going, but in a positive way. So my name is Betty Keller. We'll see you again tomorrow. My colleague Nick Wambo is coming up shortly with Leo Mashinani. He's going to be talking and focusing on all the top stories we have been looking at for the last 2 hours, but in Kiswahili. So you better watch out for him. It's coming up in a few minutes. All right, so we'll see you again tomorrow evening. Till then, be blessed and keep safe and love one another. Goodbye.